asking about animals that describe you. One animal that I did not hear, and I didn't expect to hear, kind of would have ruined this if you said it, so good job, was a sheep. Nobody described themselves as a sheep. No, nobody did, right? Now, sheep might not seem like a great animal to be described as. They don't seem like a lot of fun. They don't play fetch. They're an animal of prey. Why they hang out in their herds all the time. They get in danger. It always used to be known that like sheep were not smart animals. As I read a little bit on this, that maybe not true. Maybe they're smarter than we give them credit for. And actually being referred to as a sheep sometimes is derogatory. Like you blindly follow, can't think for yourself, have no strength. But here is what I'm going to tell you today. We all sheep. Every one of us, it describes us all. The thing is, we are sheep with the best shepherd around. That's what we're going to get at today. So today, it's okay to be a sheep, but don't be a sheep without the true shepherd. It's okay to be a sheep. Don't be the sheep without a true shepherd. And we're going to look at that today in our passage in Mark. We're going to hit a story today in Mark, a very famous story from Jesus. And so often this piece is what gets focused on. But that's not the part I'm going to dwell on today. You'll hear it when we get there. We're going to focus on the idea of being sheep that need a shepherd, what that looks like for our lives. So we will be in Mark chapter 6, starting in verse 30. Kyle's going to have it right up there behind me. It's bookmarked on your tables if you want to follow along on those Bibles there. Follow along, phones, tablets, computers, all good. I will be in the NIV translation. So we're going to start with Mark 6, verses 30 to 34. It says this: The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all they had done and taught. Then because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. All right, we'll stop there. So the disciples return. A couple weeks ago, we talked about how Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2 on mission. They were going to continue the mission and work of Jesus. They were healing, casting out demons, all this great stuff. Now they're back, and they've been so busy. They've been working so hard. Jesus is like, man, you guys need to take a breather, take a rest. So he says, let's go away to rest and recharge. They're going to go to a solitary place where it's just Jesus and the disciples. That's the plan, so they can rest. Jesus is looking out for his disciples. However, the popularity is so sky high that as Jesus and his disciples get on a boat, the people run around somehow and beat them to where they're going. Right? So they get there so fast, they beat Jesus and the disciples. Now, this is not the first time we see that the popularity of Jesus, and now the disciples, they are popular here too, is actually being a hindrance. But Jesus, being Jesus, sees all the people, and he has compassion on them. It says they are sheep without a shepherd. This is a callback to Ezekiel 34, when the prophecy said the Lord is going to become Israel's shepherd. And it talks about the leaders in that day that were the shepherds, how they were cruel. They ruled poorly to all the people. So all the sheep would be scattered. They had no leader. Nobody looked out for them. Well, the sheep need a shepherd. They need guidance, care, compassion. Sheep have to have a shepherd. So Jesus takes that on and he begins to teach. We don't know what he's teaching, and it doesn't even matter at this point. His teaching is guidance, it's care, it's him being a shepherd. So that's where we are. Let's keep going. Verses 35 to 38. By this time, it was late in the day, so his disciples came to him. This is a remote place, they said. It's already very late. Send the people away so that they can go to the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. But he answered, "You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take more than a half year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?" "How many loaves do you have?" he asked. "Go and see." When they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. All right, so now it's getting late in the day with Jesus' teaching. And the disciples bring this to Jesus' attention. Like, look, we're in a really remote spot. There's no villages or towns like right here. The people have to be getting hungry. So send them away. Go let them get something to eat, right? Like, it's not like we're driving and we're going somewhere. We can just stop off on the side of the road to a rest station, grab some food. They don't have that. They need to go somewhere. But hear the wording from the disciples. Send them away. Send them away. They are putting the responsibility on the people, on the sheep. Now, their heart is probably in a good place. They realize they got to eat. So send them to go eat. But Jesus goes all Jesus again. And he says, you give them something to eat. You feed them. You take care of them. See, Jesus taught the crowd. Now he's got to teach the disciples again. See, these guys that just went out, did these amazing things for Jesus, are getting it wrong again. He's got to reteach them. He's showing them. And they don't get it. They're like, dude, Jesus, my guy, do you get how much money this would cost? Half a year's wages to feed them all? Are we just supposed to go spend all that? They don't get it, and the response is kind of disrespectful because they aren't perceiving where Jesus is going. They don't ask, they just get all hot and bothered and angry with Jesus. Jesus is trying to get them to see that a good shepherd doesn't send the sheep away hungry to fend for themselves. A good shepherd is always there to care and provide. But this still seems impossible. And this is the moment where I really like to see the face of Jesus as he says this. Like, all right, guys, really? Just go and see how much you got, like I'm going to do it. Or is it this wry smile, like, all right, I know what I'm going to do. Go see how much you got. We're going to make this happen. I just want to know. Like, he's rolling his eyes. Does he know what he's going to do? But he's like, they come back, and they say, this is how much we have. 5 loaves of bread, 2 fish. Seemingly not nearly enough to feed this massive crowd. Whatever is Jesus going to do next? 39 to 44, let's find out. Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and fifties. Taking the 5 loaves, 2 fish, and looking up to the heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. The disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of the men who had eaten was 5,000. This is the famous, well-known part of the story, the one they teach the kids all the time, right? Jesus feeds a ton of people. So he instructs the disciples. What he does is to make things orderly and get set up. The cool thing here is Jesus doesn't dismiss his disciples for not really being sure what's going on. They participate. So he's going to teach them by doing. So they're part of this. All right? So they sit on the groups in green grass. First off, the groups, it makes it orderly, almost like banquet-style gathering. And then he says, sit in the green grass. This is a callback to Psalm 23, and we're going to touch on Psalm 23 more later. But in verse 2 of Psalm 23, it says, he makes me to lie down in green pastures. Because that whole psalm is about Jesus being the shepherd, being a good shepherd, giving them rest. Jesus is being the shepherd to care for his sheep. So then Jesus takes the food, follows a Jewish custom, looks up to the heaven, blesses it, and they start dividing it all out. And as the story simply goes, there was more than enough food. Everyone ate, was satisfied, and they had leftovers. And there was more. Like a good host is going to make sure there's more than enough food. This was a gathering where everyone was cared for and loved. Contrast that with last weekend when we talked about Herod and the party he threw for his birthday. That was all debauchery, sensuality, and only the elites and the few seemed to be invited. Not so the banquet with Jesus. Not at this one. It says 5,000 men, probably way more total with the women and children that were fed. To give you a little context, the neighboring towns that would have been close by all probably had populations lower than 5,000. So we got people, entire towns, villages coming to see them. But the miracle that occurred, this breaking of the bread and the fish and multiplying it, only the disciples saw that part. But the people, all of them, were cared for by the good and true shepherd. So we want to be a sheep with a shepherd. We'll look at a few ways Jesus cared for the people as their shepherd and how those work in our lives. Like I said, we're going to relate that back to Psalm 23 because I think there's some really cool parallels there with God as our shepherd. So the first thing is the shepherd provides for needs. Needs. Jesus fed the people, literally fed them from those 5 loaves and 2 fish. They needed to eat. It's the end of the day. Jesus provided. He provided enough that there was some left over. He took this seemingly small amount and made it into a lot that was more than was even needed. We're approaching, hopefully soon, springtime, right? That means all the plants and flowers and everything are coming back up. Around our house, we have, I tried to count roughly, probably like 20 tiger lilies that look like this, right? I bet we're at 20, probably. Here's the thing. They look nice. They give a nice decorative look around the front tree of our house and around the front. Now we've even got some in the back. Here's the thing. They came from one lily. One, right? It was just one. Yeah. What's that? Maybe two. 1 or 2. It was split. We kept splitting it and splitting it because it would grow. It was big enough we'd split. We'd grow. We'd split it. One giant lily. Now we have 20. Guess what? We could split it again. So if you need some lilies this spring, I know a guy. All right? I'll even help you split it. Took this seemingly small amount, right? One. And now it's all around. I could build a fortress of lilies around my house with this one lily. Jesus provides more than what we need. We just need the right perspective on need. Psalm 23:1 says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. I lack nothing. All of our needs are provided for by God. In American culture, we mess up the word need quite a bit here. I need that new phone. I need to follow this diet. I need to go to this place. I need to read this book. I need to save my money this way. I need to experience this. I need. And I understand it. And a lot of these things there isn't anything inherently wrong with, but they're probably more wants or nice things than they are true needs. So we're going to pull back that word need and maybe try to simplify it a little bit today. And I want to do that to show how we're really, truly provided for by God and how we can be grateful in that way. And it was convicting for me to go through it this week. It's a good exercise to do, so I hope we can all take something from it. God provides for our needs, not our wants or our makes me feel betters. Okay? First off, food. If you have food on your table every day, and I fully realize there are people out there that do not, but if you do, you have a need being met by God. God is providing food. You bought that food, but God's given you the ability to work, to purchase the food, or get to the store to buy the food, or be close enough to a store to get whatever food it is. Now, maybe it isn't always the fanciest. You might have a chuck roast instead of filet mignon, or some tilapia instead of a lobster, but the need is being met. Shelter. You have a roof over your head and a bed to sleep in. We have a need being met. It might not be luxurious. Many of us would like to improve our homes, right? Our dishwasher is currently broken. I'd like to kick it, okay? Love that. I'd love a new stove. I'd like a new bed, but guess what? I still have a stove I can cook in and a bed I can sleep in. So a need is being met. God is providing for that. And health. This is a little trickier one because many of us have ways or things in our lives with our health that we want to improve physically, mentally, emotionally, all of them. There's nothing wrong. But let's look at the health we do have. Where are you currently healthy? So often we focus just on the improvement areas. But where are you healthy? And see those as needs being met by God. Is God helping you? The areas you are improving in or that you're healthy in. God's provided and cared for your health, right? Or the fact that where you are improving, if you're exercising, you're able to get up and exercise. Keep God involved in health and see how he provides for it. And I bring this up because we live in a world that oftentimes will tell us we don't have enough or we just need to be after more. In reality, we have more than enough. We have leftovers, if we were to think about it in that way. So be grateful for what we do have. Be grateful to God, our good and true shepherd, who's provided for us, and we lack nothing. And it's humbling. It really is humbling to look at life this way, but do it honestly and be grateful. And then I hope that that gratitude can lead us to maybe being the hands and feet of Jesus and helping provide for those that don't have those needs met, that we can see it in that way. Because God provided for us. Be grateful and aware of that. Be grateful and aware that the good shepherd is providing for needs. So the shepherd provides for needs. Shepherd also provides guidance. Jesus taught the crowd that followed him and the disciples. They were sheep without shepherds. They needed guidance and teaching. And it's kind of cool to me how here and in other sections of Mark's gospel, he doesn't say the content of the teaching. It just says Jesus taught. He just teaches. And we know whatever he was teaching was important and impactful because it was the words of Jesus. It's not always about the specifics. It's about being willing to be guided by what Jesus is teaching. Have you ever gotten bad directions or bad guidance when somebody told you how to get somewhere? I remember being in college and we were going to, our roommate's sister got married and we were all able to go to the reception. And he lived in a smaller town in Wisconsin. And I'm pretty sure his directions went something like this, like get on the highway and go north. After 35 miles, take the exit by the McDonald's, turn right by the elementary schools, keep going north for 4 minutes, turn left at the meat market, and then it's going to be there on the right. Okay, am I going north or south or up or down, left, right? Not the greatest guidance ever, right? But you see some people want directions. There's a lot of Instagram reels out there about how tell somebody to go north or south. It's no, I want to know, do I go left or right at Target? That type of thing. We want guidance that makes sense. We want to understand the guidance we receive. God as the good shepherd gives us guidance, and guidance by God comes in a variety of ways. Psalm 23, the second part of verse 3 and verse 4 says, he guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Let's look at Jesus' guidance in both in teaching and in life. So Jesus guides by teaching. We need to be taught by God. And to be taught, we need to be teachable. Now, I fully believe all of you are very intelligent and smart people in this room. That being said, we can all learn. We don't have it all figured out. We might even be wrong on some things. So we want to be teachable. And I want you to honestly ask yourself, are you teachable by God? Are you willing to let God teach you? Be challenged by God if he's challenging something you believe. To be taught something new that you don't know yet. Start by listening to and for God. What's he saying? What's he showing you? Where's that nudge? Keeps kind of jabbing you in the stomach hey, pay attention to this. Or that thing you can't get off your mind. And here's what I want you to think about too, if your response when God starts teaching you, because I've been in this mode before. God's putting something on your heart and your mind, and your first response is, yeah, I hear you, but. Okay, I get that, but. Or I don't really know if I like that, but. Here's what we got to do. To put it bluntly in that situation, shut up and listen. That's what I've had to do. We got to stop talking sometimes, stop responding, stop analyzing, and just listen to God, right? This is the whole, as my parents probably used to tell me, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? We got to listen to God. For God to teach us, we have to listen. And it's not easy to be taught when the content is challenging, right? If you've taken a difficult class at some point in school, it can be hard to be teachable. But we want to be teachable to God. So we need to listen to be taught even when it's hard or challenging. Now, it might be more fun maybe for some of us to be taught something new, right? God's putting something on your heart that you never thought about before, or you hadn't seen it yet and made that connection. That can be a lot of fun, and my encouragement is keep listening and get into your Bible at that time. Read and listen, even if it's one chapter a day, one passage a day. God will continue to reveal to you. He can show you and teach you, but we just have to be teachable. Because Jesus as the shepherd, Jesus as the teacher wants to teach us and will. We just got to let him. And then he guides with what I would call life guidance. Think about this as putting in the teaching, make it practical, put it into practice in life, letting what God has taught you play out. And this is an easier probably said than done. Like, yeah, I totally let God guide my life, right? But when I pull it back, do I? And God's guidance comes again in a variety of ways. And I want to look at a few of our responses to things, because this is the one that struck me. Letting God guide you in our responses. So how we respond to setbacks. When things don't go as we hoped or as we planned, right? How do we respond when we get disappointed or angry by it? Do we soothe that disappointment with behaviors we shouldn't? Or do we take that feeling to God and work through it with him? Not ignoring the feeling. God doesn't guide us to ignore, but he does guide us back to him when we're disappointed or angry. How about when somebody legitimately wrongs us? They hurt you and it is their fault. It is on them. How do we respond? Do we hold a grudge? Do we attack them, point out everything they did wrong, all their faults? We take the red pen to the situation and tell them you did it all wrong? Or, even in the hurt, even in the anger, take the guidance of God and respond with grace and eventually forgiveness. It is not easy. I realize that. But we're not erasing how we feel. We're not erasing what's been done. But having our response be guided by God and the example set by Jesus. God guides us in how we see other people. It comes with us seeing all around us, seeing the people, no blinders on. We talked about that last week, right? Do we see people the way God does? Or do we just see the people we want to see, we like to see, are easy to see, or the ones that maybe can help us out a little bit? There's nothing wrong. We can see all those people, but when we put the God glasses on for a little bit, we see other people how he does. We see the people that others maybe don't see or that they miss. So God guides us to see others. Finally, God guides our plans. He guides us to remember that his plans need to become our plans, reminding us that his plans are our plans. Well, sometimes what we come up with might actually match up with what God's plans are, right? Like you're driving down the road, and God's going to have you take a nice slow turn left, and you want to veer left. Okay, you're still going the same direction. It's just a little different. That's okay. Sometimes we're going, and things are great, and we're like, I want to keep going at 75, windows down, and keep cruising. God's like, no, we're getting off on this exit. That's a little tougher. But we follow that guidance. We have to avoid, and this is a mindset I've gotten caught in, be like, I have this great plan. Hey, God, here it is. If you could just, rubber stamp it, put your approval on it, that'd be really cool, and I'll just go on my way. It doesn't usually work out so well when I do that. So we let God guide through his plans. See, sheep get really lost really easily without a shepherd guiding them. The shepherd sees danger or distractions or pitfalls that the sheep might not be able to see. God sees things we can't see. God sees things we might not want to see. So we stay close to God and let him guide to either help us avoid these things, or if we do get caught in them, he helps us out. We can't do that if we never let his guidance or his plans dictate our lives. That happens when we let our plans be better than his. So we let God guide. We let the shepherd guide us as his sheep. Last thing the shepherd provides, we're going to talk about is rest. Rest. Jesus had the people sit on the green grass and rest. Psalm 23, verse 2 through the first part of 3a. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Rest by peaceful streams. This is a restoring, refreshing rest. Why is it that it feels like with Jesus talking about rest like this, it's so hard for us to experience? Like even just take a piece of rest, sleep for a minute, right? Think about how difficult it can be to get good sleep. I hope some of you do. We did not have a great night of sleep at our house last night, I'll be honest. We both kids up at one point. Who knows? I don't even know what time it all was. But like for me to even try to go to sleep right, I got my weighted blanket, I got my 2 pillows. It's not too hot, not too cold. The background noise of the TV on, and maybe I'll fall asleep right, okay? I am incredibly jealous of like little kids that can seemingly sleep anywhere. We were at, a few years ago, at Schuster's Farm when the flowers were all blooming really high, and the kids were there. They were running around playing hide and seek. Joella laid down and fell asleep in the flowers. She fell asleep in the middle of the flower patch. No joke, she's actually asleep. No way. And if I fell asleep like that, I would wake up and every bone in my body would hurt. Right? I couldn't sleep like that. We're told how important sleep and rest are, yet it's really hard for us to do it. And rest is even more than just sleep. It's so important, but it's hard to find. In theory, rest should be an easy one, but in practicality, it's not. See, I find it easier to be grateful to God for providing for my needs than I do to find rest. I find it easier to let God teach me really hard things or challenging things than I do to find rest. I find it easier to let God guide me to make turns in my life that I don't even want to go on than it is for me to find rest. Because at least in these, I'm participating. I'm doing something. I'm active. Because see, to rest, we have to slow down and stop. But then we're lazy. We're unproductive. We fall behind. So we just keep going and going and going, and we get burnt out and stressed out. I'm not going to make you raise your hand, but how many of you in some facet of your life feel worn out, exhausted, or stressed right now? You don't have to raise your hand. Now, how many of you take consistent time to rest with God? Biblically, we'd call it Sabbath, maybe, to use the term. Now, this is more than a nap or just binging Netflix. It can include that, but it's time to let God calm you and recharge you and refresh you. See, rest is not only recovering, it's rejuvenating. God's helping you recharge from what you've done and get you ready for what's coming next. God gives clarity during rest because we've slowed down. We can see and hear clearly. I am, just full disclosure, I'm terrible at rest also. Correct. Thank you. Comes from my wife. She's not wrong. Rest takes trusting in God because so often to take that time of rest, we have to put something down and not do something. So we trust that it's going to be okay that we don't do that. I read in a devotional a few weeks ago that was talking about Sabbath rest, and it says Sabbath helps us to see the difference in what is essential in our lives and what we've allowed to remain as the illusion of being essential in our lives. See, we deem things to be essential that maybe aren't, but we make them essential, and we do them all instead of rest, when maybe we could put those things down and rest, because resting in God is actually essential. God rested on the 7th day in the creation narrative in Genesis. If the God of the universe can take a day to rest, then I can, you can, let the laundry pile up for another day, let that email sit in your inbox for another 24 hours, let the grass get a little longer, let a dish sit on the counter. We could keep going, right? All so that we can rest in God. See, we treat rest like a want, but rest is a need. We treat it like a want, but it's a need. It's a need, and our shepherd provides it. We just got to take it. Because he doesn't want exhausted or burnt out sheep. He wants sheep that are healthy, that are rested and ready to move when he says it's time to move. So find your version of those green pastures and quiet waters. Rest in God there and be refreshed. You're not being lazy or unproductive. You're actually being obedient. You're actually following God when you rest, and you're helping yourself. Make rest a habit, right? Don't treat it like a once-in-a-while little treat, like the red velvet cupcake I had last night. It was great. Rest should be consistent. There's a quote in the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. He says, "The Sabbath is to a spirit of restfulness what a soccer practice is to a match or a band rehearsal to a show. How we practice and prepare our minds and bodies for the moments that matter most." Think about getting ready for something. I get ready for a sermon. Prepare. I have benchmarks. I want to be here by Monday, here by Tuesday, here by Wednesday, here by Thursday. I'm systematic when I get ready. I think prepare. What if we think rest? Rest is part of that preparation. Rest gets us ready too. We need it. We got to trust that rest. Take the refreshing and recharging rest that's found in God. It's found in the good shepherd who knows that we as sheep need to rest. That's why he says it. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He makes me. Because I don't know if we'd do it if he didn't tell us that we really need to. He does it because he's the good and perfect shepherd. We'll wrap up here. He's that good and perfect shepherd. He provides for our needs. Not our wants or our makes us happy, but our needs, the true needs. Look at how he does that and be grateful for that. He provides guidance. We need guidance. We're lost without it. It comes in his teaching, whether it's things he's challenging us on or brand new things he's showing us. He guides us in life direction, honestly and authentically, helping us living out what he teaches, putting that into our lives every day in all of our scenarios, how we respond to things, how we see people, where he wants us to go. And then he provides rest. It's not cool to overwork ourselves and get super burnout and stressed. God wants us to rest. He designed us to rest. He offers us rest. So find the green pastures, find the calm waters, and take rest. We have the true and good shepherd, so be a sheep of that shepherd. Let's pray. God, I thank you for today and for this passage. And God, I thank you that we're sheep, but we're not without a shepherd in you. And that we can see that in this passage and how much you care as our shepherd. And what you provide as our shepherd. God, I pray for all of us that we would take advantage of what you provide. We would actually take it. We wouldn't just know that it's there, but we would take it and use it for our betterment. That we would take the needs that you provide for and be grateful for those, whatever they are. God, that we would take the guidance you give in your teaching, God, in your spirit directing us in our lives. We would really let that guide us. Whether it's somewhere we thought we'd go or not, God, we would let you really guide. God, I pray for all of us, we would take rest. We would truly rest in you. We'd slow down. We'd stop. And we'd just sit with you in that green pasture and by the quiet water. God, we'd let that first off refresh us. We'd let it rejuvenate us. God, we'd take the recovery side of it too, but God, that we would just take that rest. So I pray that we would see the things we need to put down or see the time that we can take that rest, God. And we thank you for being the good and true shepherd and that everything you provide, God, is more than enough for all of us. Pray this in your name.